How's it going, guys? This is Casey Dunnigan, owner of Flysnties Fly Company. Today we're going to tie a foam body caddis. This is a kind of a variation of Flysnties fluttering caddis. Just a few little tweaks here and there, but otherwise it really is kind of a fluttering caddis by a friend of mine named Ben Flysnties. So first off, we're going to start with our thread. This is Montana Fly Company in sand color, but it's more of a tan, but they call it a sand color. So we're going to start our thread right at the eye of the hook here, and just make about 6 wraps or so. Cut off your tag, and then we're going to take a piece of opal mirage tinsel, attach that to your hook, and we're just going to wrap this tinsel down about 2/3 of the way of the bend. The hook that I have in here is a size 14 Firehole Outdoors, model number 316. So wrap your thread all the way back, like I said, down about 2/3 of the way down the hook, and then bring your thread back up with touching wraps. You want a nice smooth body on this, okay? And then we're going to take our mirage tinsel and we're just going to make segmented wraps back up to the eye of the hook here. Alright. Once you get there, just tie that off. 2 wraps behind, 2 wraps in front, cut it off. So we're going to make this body pretty durable here, and where we're going to do that, we're going to apply a little bit of Solarez Bone Dry over top of this. This is nice and thin, so it'll soak into that thread really nice, and it'll give you a nice protective layer over top of your tinsel, so when you do catch a fish on this, everything just doesn't blow apart on you, and you can keep fishing and not have to change your fly out. Alright, now we'll just zap this with our light real quick, cure it up. Alright, good to go. Now, so the next thing we're going to attach is actually our foam body. So what we have here is Wapsi fly foam in 3mm. So you're going to want to cut a strip 3mm wide. So in a sense, you have a perfect square of a strip of foam. And the way I shape the backside of the body is just with a lighter. So you're just going to, let me see if I can actually demonstrate this here. So you're just going to take your lighter and just kind of form it. You're not really touching the foam, you're kind of just getting the heat close to the foam and tapering both sides to a point, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so our tie-in point is going to be about 1 to 1.5 hook eye lengths behind the eye of the hook here. Okay, so we're going to take our foam and stick it right on top of the hook. And I kind of judge it. I don't want to go too far off the backside, probably a half a hook gap at most. So what you want to do is get your foam nice and centered up on top, make 2 loose wraps with your thread, right? And when you got that, just pull straight down, okay? And then, just check the position of your foam. Make sure you're good. Make 1 more wrap on top and then come up underneath, and this way you won't have anything slip, and then just bring your thread back to that tie-in point. Okay, so now we're just going to cut off this front piece here. You're just going to be left with a little stub, and all you're going to do is just lash that down in and just kind of mash it underneath your thread there. Alright, so we're nice and centered, we're not hanging off the back too much, we're doing good. Okay, Now the next thing we're going to tie in is MFC Widow's Web. This is Caddis tan, okay? This is an underwing. So what I like to do, pretty much the same thing, you know, tie it right in on top here, just like we did with our foam, and I'm going to let it hang over the back here a little bit. So catch that in there. Same thing. Come up underneath, make a few wraps, bring your thread back up in front of that on top of that tying point there. Cut off your excess on the front. Now you're just going to take your widow's web and you're just going to cut it even with the back of your foam body here, okay? And when you lay that down, you're just going to be nice and even. Okay, now the next thing, our overwing, which is our final material here, this is Nature's Spirit Bull Elk. Bull elk you want to use for your larger patterns. It's more hollow, it flares more, and so obviously the floatability is more. The more hollow your deer hair is, you know, the better your flotation is on the fly itself. But you have a much more extra support in floatability just with the foam on this fly itself. So you want to clean and stack. Not too much. I mean, this is kind of a pattern that you have to play around with as far as stacking your deer hair and the amount that you use, because you can overdo it and you can underdo it. So you kind of just want to play around. Once you get used to tying the pattern, and it is very easy to tie, you'll kind of figure out how much you need just by holding it in your fingers or just kind of looking at the stack. So I got my bull elk here, clean and stacked. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to lay this right on top, right even with the back side of the foam here. So you want to transfer your hands. Now one thing that's good to do here is spin your thread. This will tighten up your thread, so when you come up over top, it stays nice and not limp, I should say, but it kind of stays almost kind of like wiry, so you can make a nice loose wrap. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 wraps. Same thing like we did with the foam. Now you're holding your bull elk hair in your material hand nice and tight. Now you're just going to pull this straight down, and your hair is going to flare out really nice for you. Okay. Now once you have that, kind of keep the butts separated. All right, now the back wing is nicely tied in on the back side. Okay, so keep a little bit of tension on your thread. Pull back your butts, bring your thread forward, in front of your tie-in point, and just kind of really making a little head there. So now what you want to do is whip finish this off. This may be a little bit difficult for some people. I think I've tied this fly 100 times, so it's kind of easy. So get your whip finisher set up, pull your hair back with the other hand, and just make a few whip finish turns on there. And boom, that's it. Tighten up your knot. Now all you're left to do, cut off your thread and then trim the butts. So, you know, there's a couple ways that you can trim the heads on these. It's really just preference. I mean, you can go with the traditional style of an elk hair caddis. You know, it just kind of has that square kind of butt head on it. So what I like to do is just kind of pull mine tight, and I'm going to come up right to the eye of the hook there and kind of just trim it off. You can get your stragglers and all that stuff. I mean, you can spend an hour trimming this stuff, but it's really not necessary. But what I like to do is just kind of make sure I'm not really crowding the eye of the hook at all. And I'm almost kind of following the circumference of the eye of the hook when I do this. And I just kind of I like to have a neat little head on them. Okay, maybe something like that is perfectly fine. All right. And then all we're left here to do now, we're gonna add a little bit more of the solar res, just to let it soak into the thread where you did your whip finish, so you have a nice durable fly. Just come up underneath, get that on there. Blast it with the light. And that's it. That is your tan foam body caddis. Very easy to tie. This is the pattern that I use when I'd like to fish a dry dropper rig and I want to hold up, you know, a good sized nymph, like, you know, my panty dropper nymph. That's why it's named the panty dropper nymph. It's used as, you know, a dropper pattern, and you know, just kind of a clever name. But anyways, you know, I sometimes I fish those in a 14 and it has, you know, a 7/32 or a one size bigger tungsten bead on there, and this sucker has no problem holding that up. You know, you got your foam body, then you've got the widow's web, which is treated with water repelling substance, and then you've got your bull elk, which is very, very very hollow, and you know, has good floatability. So all around great pattern, and don't worry about tying the tippet onto the bend of the hook here. It's very, honest to God, I've never had any one time that I've been casting and, you know, had my tippet slide off from my dropper. A lot of people think that because there's not a barb there to stop your tippet, that it's going to fly off while you're casting, or, you know, you catch a fish. I've never ever once had that problem. I think maybe pulling the dry fly out of a fish one time, I may have slipped the tippet off, or the tippet rather. But I think that's a small sacrifice to pay. You know, I mean, you catch a fish and, you know, you tie your dropper back on if you happen to, you know, floss it through like the fish's, you know, catch it on a fish's tooth or something like that. But I think you guys will really enjoy this pattern. It floats like a cork. It catches fish on top of it, and very easy to tie. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Hopefully I was pretty straightforward with everything. I know it's been a while, and holidays were kind of hectic, so we're back again, and hope you guys had a great holiday, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Take it easy.